Now we are.
There we go.
Thanks, Allison. Yeah, Robert is not on the. Anita, could you mute, please?
That's me.
Robert's not on the committee anymore because he missed a year and a half of meetings, and you're not supposed to miss that many. Not necessarily through any fault of his own, but I invited him to I told him that, for the near future, we're going to continue on Zoom, and it's technology that's not allowing him to continue. He doesn't have an internet connection at home. And I encouraged him to look for a way to do that through his phone, but that didn't happen either. So I also encouraged him to possibly use the library if he could, but I don't know if that's an option either, or the town or something. And then I invited him to meetings, the last meeting we had in person and things like that. But I explained to him that he's welcome at all our meetings, but that that participation was important. Related to live streaming, I think what I'll need to do, oh, Linda, did you have something?
Yeah,
you waving?
I was just looking at Late Funeral Home, and if it's Robert Davis with the Robert A. Davis Architects and working with the Bicycle Maine, Bike Maine, and Maine Pathways Committee, then yeah, September 25th. Does that sound right to you guys? The architect?
Yes. He is an architect.
So
Anita, what day did your mom pass?
My mom passed on the 20th.
So that was a busy week.
Yeah. And same day as our son was celebrating his wedding. Yeah.
Yeah. Tough day, good day.
Yeah. Wow, that's something.
yeah, we lost a committee member. Long-time committee member. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm very sorry. Thank you for letting us know, Linda. We missed that. Wow.
Yeah, I spoke to Robert, but just before we went on vacation.
Yeah, that was a month ago. Wow. Linda, does it mention a funeral?
Oh, hang on. Private celebration. The 2022 Harvest Moon at Bernice and Herbert Shea Family Farm in York County. So it sounds like 2022.
That's his son.
Next year, 2022.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. He says he has a son and says that he has a son and several sons, 4 sons. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. That's too bad.
Yeah. Wow, that's surprising. He was doing fine. I don't know what happened. Yeah. Live streaming. Janice has asked that I get the Zoom link set up earlier so that the public has more access, and we are truly having a public meeting. So I'll try to get the reminder out a little earlier, and Allison, you can set up the Zoom link a little sooner, and that should be fine. just a heads up on that.
In terms of the Zoom link, send that to my private email, not the town email, because I have to go up and forward the message to here before I can connect it to my laptop.
Whoa, Helen.
I don't have the link to my town email on my laptop.
That's an easy fix. If we could fix you on that one. Ellen.
A
But
long
Yeah.
conversation with the guy at the tech person at the town office finally got it linked to my home computer. So
Jeff, is this going to temporarily be okay with Rockport, the way we're doing things? Fact that we didn't have this meeting that we were supposed to have and,
Yeah, let me cover that when we get to
okay.
something. Yeah, down at the bottom, remote participation. We'll get to it. Let's get to the minutes. Other than the wrong date, any other comments?
Hello? On the second page, where you're talking about, he asked Aurel Gourneau, MDOT engineer, misspelled that. There's no double L at the end, otherwise it's correct. Page, very top line of page 2. Which he asked Aurel Gourneau. You see that, the spelling? You have to knock off those 2 L's. And there's a random vacationing A down there. The end of the 4th paragraph down on that same page is an A off to the right that isn't connected to anything. So very minor. Great job on the notes. Very thorough. You got the date though, the September 1st.
Yes.
At the top of the minutes. Okay.
September 9th. It was supposed to be the 1st, but we didn't have it on the 1st.
Was it right? Okay. Sorry.
Was it the 8th or the 9th?
He says it was the 9th.
I don't know, but a quick look at a calendar could figure that out.
Yeah, the 8th was a Wednesday.
Yeah. So that was the day. Okay, so September 8th.
Okay, that was exciting.
Good. Nice to hear.
Can you mute Anita? That'd be great. Yeah. Here we go. Any Rockport prospects?
I've done nothing. Unless we're thinking about another student possibility, then there might be some possibilities. Especially if it was about biking trails.
You're thinking of the mountain bike team.
Not just now there are kids that are actually interested not about mountain biking, but want bike commuting.
yeah, I've seen on several occasions a group of maybe 5 or 6 kids heading down the Union Street pathway towards Camden with their little backpacks on their backs about 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning.
What's the feeling of the group about having a student on the committee?
I think it's fine.
My only real concern is the pace of change, and and there can be some really good ability for them to learn bureaucracy, but kids can get impatient that things don't happen faster.
Yeah, the timeline, the scale is it doesn't work super well for a 9-month school year. And I would be afraid that they would be disenchanted because of, how much can they do? There's not a lot. I don't know.
So-
I don't know.
Well, they have done a lot in the past in other clubs at the high school. They have done actually quite a number of things. So, welcome to the real world, but they can, sometimes the changes can happen fast. You just never know. So you don't want to protect them from the real world either.
I don't think there's anything in our bylaws that prevents consideration of a high school student, right? So if that's the case, then why don't we just wait until if a student comes forward, if we have a candidate, then we talk about it then, but it's sort of hypothetical right now.
Okay,
But Margot was wondering
well, I think we've got some kids who really are interested in kind of specific projects, and I think they can be quickly taught of the slowness of reality. But if they want to join, I'll talk to them and we move names forward.
Anita?
I would like to mention that the Energy Committee has had watershed students represented on it quite a bit, and a single student, not multiple students. And in my experience with having a student on the committee, what I've seen is that when you're trying to get something passed through the select board tends to be actually more attentive to the student and appreciative of the student's work, and it tends to be a positive thing when the committee is represented by a student.
Okay, so let's
That's
go
been my
get a bunch of high school students.
It works great when they form their own group too, and they just do it without, sometimes it's,
Right.
sometimes they learn, they participate a little on town committee and they're like, wow, this really isn't effective. And they, do their own thing and that works better too. So, I mean, that's fine. There's no reason not, I agree. There's no reason to shelter them from the world. And if the result is that they're like, wow, this really doesn't make a lot of difference, I'm going to do my own thing, then maybe they'll figure out a better way to impact change based on this. So I love having more students involved in this stuff personally.
Okay. Margot, all I ask is that when you talk to him, make sure that you tell them that what our mission is on the Pathways Committee is connecting destinations. So it's not a free-for-all for just in case, you're soliciting like the mountain bike team, which would want something very different. Yeah. So. Okay. And I still would encourage Linda and Margot and Helen to put your heads together on some possible candidates, and all of us to keep it in mind. If we can think of somebody from Rockport that could be engaged. Let's see, moving on. Maritime Farm, Shirtail, I have nothing to update. Allison, do you have anything? I have nothing there. Route, let's see, Riverwalk.
Excuse me, Jeff. Sorry, in taking notes here, I missed the specifics of your assignment regarding the student member. Did you take notes on that? Who you asked to do what? Because I didn't catch that on my notes.
Just if there's somebody, we will bring their name forward and we can talk about them, but not to discourage students. But also not to protect them from the realities of how this committee works.
Thank you.
Anita, can you mute, please? Riverwalk, particularly on the middle school and the wastewater treatment plant, I do not have any updates on that. I do not.
Can I just ask a question? Sorry to go back to the maritime. The contractor was chosen. Was that what was reported a couple of months ago?
It was awarded and it'll be done. They thought maybe they'd start this fall, but probably next year.
Next spring.
Yeah, next year. Yeah,
Okay. Thank you.
yeah, Allison.
Sorry. I'm finding everything like comical tonight. I don't know why. Just the wording of everything is
Yeah, well,
next spring.
I learned
year. I don't know. You know, no, not next year, next spring, next year.
I learned this in India. Oh yeah, it'll happen. It's like
Right,
that means who knows,
right.
right?
Allison, I'm still kind of giggling over your reference last night to Santa's lap. So
Oh, thank you.
not to digress this meeting, but things
Yes.
said publicly are interesting.
The holiday section of our meeting last night. Yeah.
Christmas by the sea.
Hmm.
Moving on. I had in my notes, Linda, that you were going to chat with Patrick Adams and give him a heads up that, we hope to apply for a grant.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. And I did send an email, and Heidi had sent me a note from, I think that there's 10 grand in for planning for Route 90 right now in the budget. And John said, hey, let's keep going, push that forward. I think now with the planning grant for the Route 90 sewer, that's one more avenue that we can use for doing something straight at Route 90.
So you did write to Patrick telling him that we'd like to do something or maybe dovetail with this. It's a great time to do it.
Well, I didn't mention the sewer, but that is
Yeah.
something that came up when Heidi, Margot, and John and I were talking, and he's got it in his mind. So I think it's just something that we, as that study moves forward, that we make sure that we're somewhere in there.
Do you think, or did you press Patrick at all to ask him what DOT grants might be available that would
Well,
help
if
the
the con-
cause of
Help the cause of what? Of
the planning along Route 90 and in coordination possibly with, just planning.
Yeah, no,
planning.
I'm not going to get involved in the sewer because then I'm overstepping my bounds. I think we're just going to go on the conversation that we had. Heidi, Margot, Helen, myself, Patrick, and the other gentleman. And I think just keep building off of that. But when the conversation ensues, when he writes back, then I'll write back and say, Route 90. But I think that that's more of a conversation to get underway once the Route 90 sewer. I can't remember, Helen, I can't remember if that's on the ballot or if that's been expended, if that was approved. It may have been approved by the select board.
I've been so wrapped up in other things the last few months. I don't remember. I don't think there's anything on the ballot for November. But the person to ask, of course, would be Linda. To
Well,
see.
we'll check in with John
Yeah,
and just
John
keep
would
that
know.
conversation going.
Yeah,
So
I
progress, slow progress on that one.
yeah, I guess I'm trying to figure out how to tease out what we're asking Patrick about or how to move it along. Like I remember ages ago, there were 3 or 4 buckets that DOT would offer grants under. And like one of them was a community action program, which this would have fit really well, but I don't
This
think they
this
offer
was
that
a
anymore.
planning grant.
Well,
This was
that's,
specific. This was a specific grant that
This
he,
is all about planning and it laid the foundation for any project that would happen thereafter. And so, and this is like Patrick was the one who said, this is what you want. If you've done a planning grant and on that planning grant, it said XYZ, then it became, you were bumped right up to the top of the pile for any project that came out of a planning grant.
yeah, and I think that's how the downtown Camden master plan came about too. And which is driving a lot of the work that was just done and will be done, hopefully sometime in the future. But what I'm driving at is, have you seen that application on the internet or?
No, but Patrick was willing to help us essentially usher that through. He just needed to know what the matching, because it was 100% match. And so we asked for 25,000 and then it would have been another 25,000 from DOT.
So it's 50-50 or whatever.
It's a 50 or whatever. It's 100% match. And so we asked for 25,000 and it was in the budget, but then it went through a couple of spin cycles and we don't know where it landed because.
no, we have 10 grand.
Right.
And so it looks like we've got 20,000 if that money's still available at this stage of the game. So that's where,
Or if we combine that with the next budgetary process, and I think that was sort of in our minds. Let's do. So let's just continue the conversation with Patrick and also with John, and then the budget, getting something into the budget.
Yeah, if you can name the grant or something like that, then you say it gets more specific, more granular for the budget committee. Then they say, hey, there's this $50,000 grant, sorry, $25,000 matching grant from DOT, which will give us $50,000 for planning, blah, 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 blah. But it would be good if we knew, who is awarding it and things like that. And then if it would be good to talk to the select board to make sure they're on board about this in Rockport.
well, I think this is where in Rockport, we've got John on board. John definitely has a bigger picture vision. I mean, and so it hopefully we're settling for a few years and things can start to happen because it's been a pretty tumultuous bit of time.
Yeah.
And so John has a vision. He understands that we've applied for this grant. He was very excited, I think, and then we can do the talking with the select board. But if we don't have John understanding, so he can do all the sort of groundwork with it, that's kind of what happened in the past is we just haven't had the budgetary support. And so without the budgetary support from the town manager, it's kind of moot. So
if John puts it in the budget to start with, then we're.
Margot, that's what we're trying to do. We're just trying to give John more information.
That's what we're
That's
doing.
what I'm trying to advocate for, to talk to Patrick and get clarity on it and blah, blah, blah.
That's what we're working on.
So we're gonna achieve clarity and we're gonna continue the conversation with John. And I think it's an engine that's slowly revving up and moving forward. Thank God, after 30 years.
But I agree, Linda, that it's the flywheel is starting to move and we just need to keep it turning. And in my mind, I'm trying to think, okay, so what's the next thing to kind of nudge it along? I'm not trying to hurry it. I'm just trying to see
hear back
where
from Patrick is the next thing, to hear back from Patrick and then to go from there.
I have not had a great track record from any MDOT person about them owing me a phone call.
Well,
It always has to come from us.
then I'll call him.
Yeah, like call him in a month, call him in 3 weeks, but don't have him owe you.
No?
Yeah. Yeah, I just haven't had a lot of luck with that.
Okay.
So, so I had in my notes that you were going to follow up with Patrick Adams on the interest in the grant. And you did send him an email, and that's where we are. Okay. So I'd check in with him in a couple weeks. Just say, hey, just following up, blah, blah, blah. Heidi, welcome. Did you have a chance to, well, let's see, Will's not here yet, but he had asked about the development, whether you'd heard, whether anybody's heard any scuttlebutt about the development at RES?
It's a process, and we just did a story the other day. Lewis went over and reported on what they were doing. It's going to the voters on November 2nd, whether or not to approve a $35,000 planning package with this one, what is it, new something of Portland. And then they would be retained to come up with a plan for RES. So that's where it's up to the voters right now if they want to pursue this particular option for planning.
So this
And
is
that-
beyond the committee coming up with something itself and
It's-
putting out a RS request for proposals?
No, that's right. The committee's not putting out another request for proposals. The
Okay.
committee recommended and the select board agreed to put on the ballot spending $35,000 for contract, 1-year contract with this Portland company to come up with a plan. Now the select board is also talking about if the voters turn it down, should they just ask the town, or should they just ask the town to sell the entire piece of property, put it back on the market?
Mhm.
So we're not going to really know until after November 2nd what the next steps possibly could be for RES.
Thank you. That was very helpful, Linda. Anything else there? Route 90, anything else? Anita, Burma shave.
Okay, so I was tasked with following through on this idea of educating the public about sharrows. So I did order signs, and I just talked today to Dave St. Laurent about posting the signs. Let me show you what we've got.
Nice.
Let's see.
Yay.
That's great.
That's awesome, Anita.
Okay, so very reasonable, just under $150 for 14 of these, 2 sets of 7. There's a wicket that we can put them on. That was one choice. It would go, you see, I don't know if you can see this wire wicket. It would go like that, like that. That's one option. I had a discussion with Dave St. Laurent today in town office, and he kind of brainstormed how to approach this, because another point of discussion was how homeowners would feel about having signs in their front yards, or what appears to be their front yards, but would be the right of way. So he suggested screwing them to the utility poles. And I expressed concern about whether that's legal. He has a pretty good connection with the owner of the town's utility poles, and will be calling and discussing it and seeing if it's okay for us to put them on utility poles. He would prefer that pathway committee's members do that rather than the Public Works Department. And the last sign does attribute the signs to the Pathways Committee. We do have a question about whether we want to have something on each sign that attributes it to the Pathways Committee. It may not be so necessary if they're going on utility poles. So, do you have any questions?
It seems that it'd be more secure on utility poles instead of sticking something longer, kids grab or people that it's stupid coming back.
Well, you'd kind of avoid the issue of property owners having to be contacted, or alienating anybody who was unhappy about even being asked. So that was the primary thought about the utility poles. So I would leave that decision about whether to use utility poles or the wire wickets to Dave's research. And he said, if he says go ahead, then I'll probably go out and with a handful of screws and stick them on.
How far apart are these supposed to be placed? Or is there a?
Well, I think each utility pole, once you start, I think they can be read that far, that close together, because it's not really a high-speed street. The
Wow.
question, one of the questions, so those are all sort of still up in the air, and where we put it and that sort of thing. And certainly you guys should weigh in on that. The other question is how long it would be up. And having it on a utility pole means that there aren't issues about lawn mowing around it, which would certainly be a problem for a homeowner. So yeah, I think it'd be helpful to have a decision by the Pathways Committee about how long they should be up. And I showed you the attribution. Where? Here we go.
Hey, Anita,
Yeah.
I have two questions. One, I think utility poles are only on one side of the street.
Oh, good point.
Second question is 7 utility poles is really far. It's really far.
Could you put 2 on
yeah.
a pole?
I don't know. I haven't really kind of planned it out, because that was only today that we talked about that. So I can evaluate that, but Jeff has a good point about that only takes care of one side of the street. So, for the other side of the street, that's a door knocking enterprise. And again, I would agree that it is best for the Pathways Committee to take that on, so that any alienation problem or issue, it's on us and not on the town.
Are you
Thank you
talking
so much
Mechanic
for
Street?
that.
Sorry, two people talking.
Mechanic Street?
Andrew, sorry. Try
Are
again.
you thinking Mechanic Street?
Yeah.
I
It's
wonder if
kind
we
of
could do
late in terms of when it was painted with sharrows and all the alarmist issue, comments or had probably come and gone. Allison, I'm sure you would have some comments one way or the other about all this.
I think it's really great. I really appreciate the offer to be somewhat of a human shield for public, whatever the public comes up with. I think that there are any number of ways to accomplish it, and that probably you just being out there, figuring out, okay, depending on what Dave says with the polls or not, that like I would just trust your judgment, I think, to figure out what looks best and what works best. It's not like they couldn't be changed. You're welcome to use my grapevine fence as much as or as little as you like. I could help point out a couple families that I know would be happy to have the signs if it gets to the wicket thing, but I would think it's probably pretty hard for us all to sit here and be like, well, this or that. There's something we said for just being out there and looking and figuring it out, and that you're probably very well positioned to do that. And I just love the signs, and I thank you so much for doing it.
Oh, great. Thank
Yeah,
you.
you might also want to check state law regarding signs and where they can be put and how long they can stay up and so on. Just speaking from experience with campaign signs and informational postings.
I think we should just go for it and just be kind of like, well, it didn't, oh, really? Is there a state law that says that's not okay? Because if we put up any more obstacles for ourselves,
Yeah.
sometimes we don't, sometimes you learn about a law by breaking it. And
Yeah.
If it's in
And
a
again,
way, just do it.
again, I like Allison's idea is just going out there, because if memory serves me correct, and Andrew, you can probably remember too, I love the idea of using the utility poles, but I believe the utility poles on going down Mechanic Street to town are on the north side of the street, and the utility poles coming from town going up are on the south side of the street.
well,
They're
sometimes
exactly
there's
opposite.
sometimes
I know they
there's poles on the
switch.
side. There's
They
they
switch.
have
I'm just,
guide wires and all kinds of things. They add poles all over the place.
I'm
Anita,
pretty sure.
Well, if you have
Anita?
written permission from the owner of the pole, then you're okay. But
The poles are on the wrong
utility
side of the
poles
street.
and
The
things like
utility
that
poles
are one of the things
utility
that's
pole-
specified you can't do.
Time out. I think the utility poles are on the wrong side of the street. That's what
Yeah.
I'm saying.
Oh.
And I think, I'm not 100% sure, but at least coming into town, there are enough sort of vacant lots that the mowing thing and all that stuff you can get around. I think.
Anita, did Dave say anything about sharing signs, like speed limit sign or any other sign there on one of them, or get those heavy metal posts that they use and make up our own?
That's a good question, Andrew. I think, I guess next on my list will be to just cruise along there and look at it and come up with a plan and come up with questions and come up with ideas, and using a speed limit sign post is an interesting idea. I think DOT would not appreciate it. I've never ever seen any other sign on a speed limit sign, and I think that would probably not go over well.
I'd be happy to help.
Posting them on signs like stop signs and things is absolutely illegal. I can tell you that right now.
I would think so, yeah. I think we would have seen them if it were not illegal.
I
Right.
think you should just do it and not bring it back to the committee. Just get it done.
Yeah, I think just get out there, Anita, and maybe if Dave says he owes you a call, at least give him that respect and let him know what you're doing, or when you chat with him again.
Right. Well, definitely
Yeah,
wait till Dave says okay. But
yeah. Okay, thanks for doing that, Anita. Nice work. Really nice work. It'd be great to have him up. That would be cool.
Anita, give me a call if you need help with them.
Thank you, Andrew. Yeah, I asked if the committee could come up with a suggestion about how long they are up, So can we get that sorted out before we move on?
Forever. Because
Play
there's
it by
always
ear.
new people. Right? As long as possible, until we get rid of them, I guess. No
Or we could
plow hits them.
leave them up until, people aren't going to be biking.
Oh, people bike
Yeah.
all year round. That's the point. That's the whole thing. We're trying to change the mentality there. I think it depends on whether you end up using the metal things and they go in people's lawns or whether they go on the telephone poles. We can just kind of play it by ear. Don't plan to take them down yet, I wouldn't think.
Any other input? That was Allison. Anybody else have any input on how long to leave them up?
I'd like to see them up year round if possible. As long as they stay there, people analyze. It's an ongoing education process, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm trying to think of how they'll fare when the roads are plowed. One hit from a snow plow.
They were made with the expectation that they were temporary. That's why they're this plastic core bond stuff. So they're not going to last forever
Oh, okay.
in use.
Right, but we were maybe going to turn them into permanent signs if it worked well, or
Good.
it really
Or,
depends where you put them.
I think they could be, moved. If we're going to paint more places with sharrows, then we put them up there. So we just move 'em around. I don't know.
How about if we leave them up and we'll see how they fare this winter. And if we lose 2 or 3, we just spend another $30 and replace them. They're cheap.
I have a bunch of steel fence posts we could drive in pretty right and attach to those if it's possible.
Hmm.
They're 6 feet long, I think.
Let's try with the wickets. I like the wickets. They're hard enough to put in the ground. Sometimes that road on the side of the dirt on the side of the roads is really hard. That's from personal experience trying to put up the wickets. I've bent a lot. So anyway, it can be done. It just needs a little work. And getting a post hole pounder out there, I don't know, sounds a little too serious to hammer it in.
It's easy. I've done hundreds of them.
I know, me too. Yeah, exactly.
Draws a little too much attention to the project. That's what I'm thinking. Okay, what I'm
Isn't that the
hearing
goal?
is that we aim for, sorry. What I'm hearing is that we aim for utility poles first and wickets second.
Okay.
After input from Dave St. Laurent.
Or a hybrid. Use the utility poles when you can. Yeah. Yeah, use whatever you can when you can. All right, thanks, Nita. Any other direction you need? Great. Sidewalk survey. Anita's turned hers in. There are 5 sections in Camden. 1, 2, I have 3 sections. I'm looking for Richards and I'm looking for Andrews section.
Got it.
Guilty as charged. I'm working on it.
Please get them in. Andrew, you've got it. Just, you can scan it and send it or hand it to me in person or whichever way you want to do it. I'm gonna, yeah, however you want to get it to me.
You want it
on
typed
the-
out or handwritten?
If it's not typed out, I have to type it. If it's handwritten, I'll take it that way. I'll take it however you got it. I don't want to create any barriers. On the Rockport side, Helen is the only one who's done any work there. There are 2 other areas that need to be surveyed. So if someone can offer to help, Helen, I have your information. Thank you.
Right. I just would add to it that West Street, there's no difference from the last report except for that section they put in up to the intersection to do the crosswalk. And the same thing going down Route 1, the sidewalk there, it's no change from 2014. It's still awful.
Yeah. So if someone wants to pick up those 2 other sections, that would be great with Helen's input too. And then that would be it. Looking for somebody to raise their hand. Margot walked away. That was perfect.
What are the sections? What's left to do? Rockville?
Rockville will be easy because it's just getting redone. Yeah, it's West Rockport, Route 90, Route 17, which is basically West Rockport, and then Glen Clove, Rockville, and Ingraham Hill on Route 1. So those are the 2 sections. There's West Rockport, Route 90, 17, and then the next section is Glen Cove, Rockville, and Ingraham Hill, where that sidewalk is.
Ingraham Hill, going up from Hoboken?
Wait a minute. And Warrenton, Glen Cove, yeah.
So
I'm sorry, yeah, Ingraham, Route 1.
So, okay, so we need somebody to go up from Hoboken up to Ingraham Hill, up Ingraham.
Yeah, and then Rockville.
And Rockville, we know, I did that one a few years ago. I'll do the Ingraham Hill one. And
That's area 4. Then there's just area 3, which is West Rockport.
yeah, and these are all fairly predictable. We all know what's going on.
Yep, they are. Unless something has collapsed that we don't know about. And that's what we're going out to check out.
Yep, okay. We'll take care of them.
Thank you, Linda. Where am I? I know I'm going to get behind here. I'm going to go down to, I'm going to skip the Camden Golds one and I'll come back to it. The Cobb Road connector. Do you guys know what I'm talking about there?
I do not.
Jeff, is Cobb Hill Road,
Yeah,
not Cobb Road.
Oh, yes, then.
Cobb Hill Road connector, which is from Ames Terrace to Cobb Hill Road. There's a little secret way to cross through there. At our last meeting, I think that we weren't clear whether there was a public right-of-way easement all the way through there. And I didn't need it. I know there's an easement there. Do we know if it's a public right-of-way easement? Anita, do you remember?
That's being negotiated. I don't think this is. a
So
great
the
topic of conversation.
answer is we don't know, and we're the town is in process with that, and we'll come back around to that.
Can
Okay.
Allison,
I mean, but essentially,
Al-
yes, but it's not, it's not a great topic for this meeting, but but essentially the town has a utility easement there. And it's been also used as a pedestrian easement for, 30 years or something. So there's really
Forever.
no issue there, but the documentation might need to be updated a little bit. It has a beautiful new open bottom culvert that is fish friendly for that little stream that goes through there. That's actually the stream that I've been finding young of the year brook trout and at the bottom there. So it's a nice cold water stream too. But anyway, yeah, that's, from what I've heard, there's not too much concern over that in terms of like pedestrians still being able to use it. They shouldn't use it right now because it's, there was just the construction. But, you know, all those trees that were taken down was a problem, and but that was on, you know, it's kind of a complicated situation. But the answer is that doesn't appear to be any danger of pedestrians not being able to use that.
It'd be great. It falls under what we call our connector sort of thing.
An important one, yeah, it's a great thing.
Allison, do you know whether there has been a discussion with the landowner regarding this question?
I'm going to table that right now because that's not a pathways topic, and you can talk to the town office about that, Anita. It's just not a project we're involved with. Thanks.
Why was it put on the agenda?
Because of the question about public, whether it was just a utility right away or a public right away. That was the question.
I mean, it's also just an exciting thing that we accomplished as a town when you think about it, and eventually you can go look at it, but it's actually a beautiful little stream, and there is a pathway that people use. So, I mean, I like that it's on the agenda to remind people that it's there, and we should have more things like it. Hopefully we'll have one from Lucan Terrace someday, sort of just like
that'd
that.
be great.
But
we had talked about formalizing these, and that's why, Anita, thank you. We had talked, Anita, about formalizing some of the informal shortcuts that are in town, and this would fall under that, meaning it would be awesome if it wasn't just a utility easement, that if it was a public access easement as well. And that's why that question was there.
really, you know, every time we do a utility easement, there should be something that triggers doing everything possible to get a pedestrian easement as well. Same thing with all these subdivisions.
If it makes sense.
Yeah, but it doesn't, a lot of the time it just doesn't hurt anyway, so.
Mm.
They're not allowed to build on top of utility easement anyway, so that, you know, that parcel is essentially non-buildable.
Okay. All right, thanks. That's why I needed. Does that help clarify? Thank you. Here we are at remote participation. And whether, and how are we operating right now? The answer is, you know, when our committee formed as a two-town committee, no one foresaw the potential of this situation where the towns don't fully agree on how to approach this, the process to allow us to meet remotely. John is being really great about it, really flexible. He just said, keep meeting. The go forward plan, and it's not only our committee, but some other committees in Rockport who did not make that meeting on September 23rd, is that to formalize acceptance of those state mandated bylaws that we would incorporate into our charter, says that we have to have a public meeting. And that's what the meeting was that we missed. So what we're going to do is schedule a public meeting at our next face-to-face meeting, which will be in December. And we'll invite the public to come, and everybody should come and plan on being there in person. And we'll ask for public input. We'll advertise it in the newspaper. We'll vote to incorporate those bylaws, and everything will be hunky-dory once again. Does that do it, Margot?
Wait a minute, sorry. We've
Wait.
got we have to advertise that we're having a public hearing. Why can't we just do it, tack it on to a select board meeting?
Right, it's not a select board meeting. The select board doesn't want to do it. It's our public meeting, and Diane Hamilton will help put it in the paper. What, did you have a concern with that, Linda?
No, it just seems seems like a lot of
Well,
overkill.
I'm trying to make it not, yeah, it does a little bit, but having it, the select board do it means that even more people will be involved. And I asked John whether the select board had to be involved, and he said no. It just has to be a public meeting, and the public information meeting. I'm not know if I'm using the right public input
Public
meeting. I
hearing.
don't know.
If
Public
Diane's
hearing.
saying we have to go down the road of advertising, then it's a bona fide public hearing.
Okay, that's what it is.
On what the Pathways Committee, on what the Rockport aspect of the Pathways Committee does with remote participation.
Yep.
And
That's all I
there's,
can think of doing. And I tried to make it easier, Linda, by scheduling it at the same time we were going to have an in-person meeting anyway in December.
I see.
Where is that in-person meeting going to be? Rockport or Camden?
I think we'll do it in Rockport if we possibly can. And I'll let Diane know about needing the room.
Well, you'll have to do it in Rockport if this is a Rockport.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And Rockport
Trying to make
allows committees to meet in person, so.
Yeah. Anita?
What are we going to encounter in Camden regarding the same question? What do we need to know? What do we need to do?
Camden did not formalize this process and said that we are able to, the select board did. My understanding, Allison, is the select board discussed and are meeting the letters of the law that the legislature put out there, but that after discussing with, I think, Allison and Bob Falciani, that they said, you're doing fine, and the committee can continue to meet remotely, in person, or what was the word we were using? A hybrid of the two, when we use the OWL, which also can work.
Yeah, I mean, the big thing for Camden is that it be live streamed.
That's right. And Rockport, Helen, are you live streaming your budget committee meetings?
Budget committee doesn't meet until January, February, March time period. They do them out of the select board room. So yes, I believe they are all live streamed. There was some issue. It was left up to the committee last year as to whether we wanted to live stream or not. And I don't know what they were going to decide this year for the coming budget season. There's a lot of members who feel uncomfortable having comments in public about how they feel about the budget.
What?
Sorry, Linda, you didn't know that?
No, and sorry, that's unacceptable. So, but
I'm just telling you what some of the members said.
oh yeah.
Well, they've stopped feeding us, so we're not sitting there slurping down food and sandwiches and things like that, soup and sandwiches. So.
Well, there was another, I've heard other committee members preferring not to be live streamed as well. So
I frankly, off the top of my head, I couldn't tell you who the 3 or 4 were that voiced that issue last year. I said I didn't care.
So that's the update on that. Any other discussion, questions?
I have a quick question, Jeff. Along with the meeting that we tried to do last time, they wanted to have 5 members there, but we didn't have 5 from Rockport. So are they now saying that we can have the vote be done or created with the Camden as well?
I didn't ask that question, Heidi, deliberately.
Do we have 5 members?
We have 4.
Right.
And so what we'll do is we'll have our meeting. We'll have hopefully all 4 Rockport members present, and we'll have Camden members present as well. We'll vote to embrace them. This is complicated because we're a 2-town committee, and we've never taken a vote where it's just one town. So no one anticipated this. The legislature didn't anticipate it. We're going to do the best we can, and we'll just keep going.
I guess I am fine with that. I'm more of a person that likes to have all the details laid out, so I would really be disappointed. I guess we're going to still have a regular meeting that night. So it's not a complete waste, but also in my mind, it wouldn't hurt to make sure that we're following it so that we don't have to continue to do it for 3rd time's the charm kind of situation.
Since you're on the hunt for another committee member from Rockport, does that mean that there is a remote possibility we could have a 5th Rockport committee member by that time?
To clarify, the number 5 was not a number that was created by Rockport. That's a number that is created by the quorum for our committee. It means 5 members. It doesn't mean 5 members from Rockport, 5 members from Camden. It means 5 members. That's where that number came from. And Rockport is using it in an inappropriate way, because if you have a quorum and you only have 4 people, you can't demand 5. So if we have 4, even if we have 3 Rockport members, that is a majority. And I think that will cover it. I think we'll be okay. I'm willing to take this risk. Yeah, just press on. Andrew, did you have something?
No.
Okay.
This is the kind of stuff that a student is going to watch and just think,
Oh my
this is the
God.
reason that positive change doesn't happen, because of all of the hoops that we create for ourselves, which is why sometimes I advocate for groups to not be town committees officially, because then you can just meet and organize yourself and lobby. And I mean, this is just, but.
Okay, I'm going to move on.
Oh, but just so you know, another a positive comment here. I just created a recurring meeting for Pathways that will be the same link every single time. So I'm going to send that to you now, and you can just give it to Janice,
cool.
and it will never change. And it's called Camden Rockford Pathways recurring meeting.
Oh, cool. So that's an option when you set up a Zoom link, you can make it recurring.
Yep.
And does it have to be on that day?
Nope. I set it up as one that can be like, you can make it so it's like every Wednesday or whatever, or you can just set it to be like a standing meeting. That's what I have for the select board. It's just Camden Select Board meeting, and I can start it whenever I want it based on.
Excellent. Thank you, Allison. Thank you. Then we don't,
Yeah.
That's great. That is awesome. Everybody will be so happy. What I'm going to do now is move on to Camden goals to eat, and that'll eat up the last 15 minutes. Does anybody else have an agenda item? Okay, before I show these goals to you, what I want to do is, it's not goals, I'm using the name improperly. These are projects that Camden currently is working on. I don't have one for Rockport, would love to get one for Rockport. And maybe John Duke, for his sanity, would like to come up with one too, so he understands all the stuff that he's juggling, which is why Audra did it for Camden, so the select board can see everything that the town is working on. And that's where this came from. and I'm going to show it to you, and do you have it?
Mhm.
Somebody nod their head.
Yes.
So maybe I'll make it a little bigger. Readable.
Yep.
So the yellow highlighted items, this is an entire list. There are 40 some odd, 47 items on this list. The yellow ones are the ones that have to do with pathways in various phases. So like the first one is the downtown master plan. Next one's pedestrian safety program. So I'm showing you these of 47. You can see how many Camden is working on, a lot that are related to pathways, which is very cool. The select board is very aware of pedestrian bikeways, and that's reflected in the number of projects that are in the hopper currently. So that's pretty darn cool. I'm just gonna hit these: downtown master plan, pedestrian safety program. This is the thing that we're talking about, particularly Andrew. This is the Route 1, the Elm Street. This is what generated that blinking light on Mechanic Street for the students coming down Knowlton. That's what generated this pedestrian safety inventory. And we're still working on that. It's also going to help drive potential solutions for Route 1. That would be the northbound side of the street below Rennie's, where all the problems are with utility poles. There's a Washington Street sidewalk, which we're going to work on. And the other part is the maintenance that's going on. You see right now that's on Washington Street that's closer to the middle school. The part from Knowlton Street down to town is done. The work is being done. Working with abutters on the next section that goes between Knowlton and Rawson Avenue. Currently that sidewalk, quote unquote, is just asphalt that's at the level of the road. And Dave is trying to improve that by getting a curb put in. And
Jeff, you're highlighting the Quarry Hill to Maritime Farms and talking about
that's Washington.
something
I'm just
else
messing
and-
around. It's a nervous finger.
Well, stop doing that. What are you talking about? Rawson Avenue. I'm not even seeing that on this list you've got in front of us. Could you point to that with your arrow?
Scroll down.
Washington sidewalk between Alden to the Tannery includes Washington Street to Rawson Avenue. So anyway, that's being worked on also. The Quarry Hill project, hopefully that'll be next year. That's this one. And then River Restoration, that's the project Allison is putting a massive amount of time into, that we're engaged in as well. Which the river restoration can also bear on the river walk. Paid parking management system, that's the one that the select board is, well, there's actually a working committee on that, on the parking issue, and that's going to be worked on probably for the next year to come up with a proposal for the town, and there'll be lots of information about that. And the reason that I highlighted in yellow is that any money, this is something that we all need to be aware of, any money that any quote unquote profit made from a parking meter solution has to be used by public ways, has to be used for public ways. And a public way, as defined by the legislature, is any road capable of carrying motor vehicles, including but not limited to blah, 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 blah. So the public way is a road. And when I asked Audra about it, she said they also include the sidewalks and bike lanes. And so she sees it as a way to help funding for improvements of sidewalks and bikeways as well. I'm going to put that on a future agenda to talk about. But I just wanted to introduce why I highlighted it. Pearl Street is on there because the further out part, the closer to John Street, is going to be extended, the sidewalk there. There's the pedestrian safety program. Again, why is that on there twice? Oh, different locations. John Street, this is the problem. In front of Stop and Go to Rennie's, that's that whole thing. And then there's the Rawson Avenue Bridge replacement. That's the next item. We're aware of that. I think the status of that is Audra's working on negotiating with MDOT to have that done. Have it shared, the cost will be shared. Then there's the Riverwalk, which they have as a medium-term item. Downtown TIF amendments relate to us because TIF money can be used to help us get grants or matching funds for grant opportunities. And then status to be determined are utility poles, which was, you know, they got to figure that out. It's a complicated question. Audra is hot on that. She'd love to come up with a solution to get the utility companies to be more responsible for where they place these things. So that's all I wanted to do, is to give you a very brief overview of that. And you know, I think I'm going to suggest to John Duke that he does one for Rockport. This I found very helpful. It's almost like something you can go down and check with the town on, like, how are we doing on these things? Just keep in front of them.
I think that's a good idea. The other thing though, and I don't know if it was mentioned last month, but one of the things that John wanted to have us think about, and Linda, maybe it was mentioned, or Heidi, but to think about, there are places where we actually have sidewalks that maybe they don't make a whole lot of sense because, okay. And that idea that people are going to walk in the roads even if you put a sidewalk, and that it just ends up creating cost, both in keeping them clear in the winter and maintaining them. And so are there places where we could actually eliminate sidewalks and places where they absolutely are necessary because of public safety and access and that kind of thing?
I think
And that was something that was mentioned that we were supposed to, if you were doing the sidewalk survey and you had any suggestion in that area, that would be a great place to put it in the sidewalk survey.
I think Mechanic Street was what we were specifically talking about with John. Sort of how
Helen had identified, was it Summer or?
Yeah, I think that's what it's called. They have taken out the sidewalk. Certain residents are extremely upset that they did because they didn't want to, and they had expressed that to Public Works. And they are resurfacing Lime Rock above the new portion. I presume they took out the sidewalk there since everybody was driving on it anyway. I haven't been up that way, so.
I haven't either.
I thought it was a conversation. I didn't realize it was a done deal in town for taking out the sidewalk. So that's.
Yeah, I found it by accident when I went out for a walk one day, and I was taking the pictures on Summer, or whatever that street is over there off of a mechanic.
yeah.
And
Winter Street?
Winter, yes, I know
It
it was
was summer or winter. I didn't know which it
Yeah.
was.
Winter Street. And I took pictures of it and sent them off. I didn't send them to you, but I've got them online. And then I was out of town or something. It was a couple of weeks later. I went out for a walk again and they're all gone, except the ones that are under the bush down at the end by Mechanic Street. There's about 15, 20 feet of sidewalks that are completely covered by bushes.
Yeah.
So Margot, your point is well taken. I'm a little concerned about the process here, which is,
Well, just hearing what Helen said, I'm totally in agreement that is there a process?
or the town says, we're thinking about this and now we're doing it.
Yeah, I completely agree.
So, so that is something definitely to, I guess, to report. I mean, that's.
Like I said, have you been on Lime Rock? Hughes was closed the last couple of days because they were paving it. But I understand from the section from where the new stuff stops at the library parking on up to Hughes, I assume they leveled it out and took out the sidewalk.
So I think also it's would be important if we did have a discussion about what did you call them? What did you call it, Margot? Sharing roads, sharing.
Right, where there were places where people are going to be using the road regardless, so shared roads.
Shared roads, is that a term that's being tossed around as well? I mean, is that something that you said?
Well, I think it was the gist of the conversation, but with that comes education that people need to know that this is a shared road. This means it's not, I mean, it's kind of like sharrows are a way of expressing shared roads. We
Right.
have to have some way of communicating. This is a shared road. It's not just a car road. This is a pedestrian road. It's a bicycle road. And so you don't just eliminate sidewalks before you actually have a plan for what that means.
Yeah.
Jane, is there, are you familiar with any term that's national like that?
No, not really. I mean, I guess I would say technically all roads are shared roads, but that's just my own feeling about it. So, I'm not sure where you draw the line on that.
Yeah, why is this road shared and others are not? It's like a
Right.
Jewish question.
Yeah,
Allison.
it is.
Allison.
That was the idea behind advisory lanes in Camden.
Yeah. Oh,
That, I mean, that's the whole point, is where it doesn't quite make sense to do a sidewalk. That's the entire idea, but just to open it
Yeah.
up and say like there's nothing, just like everybody's just gonna work it out, didn't really seem to be viable, but putting the lines, that's sort of the compromise, I think. That
I kind
okay,
of like that. Allison. It's like, if you see a person there, you got to give them the person that shoulder.
right,
I like
otherwise
that.
you have to pay for them to have a sidewalk.
Anita?
Just feedback on that new painting on Mechanic Street. As a bike rider coming up the road, I feel actually a lot safer and sort of feel like I've got a designated section of the side of the road that I can bike in. The paint line, I think, is very helpful also for the driver to recognize that they need to stay there, and that if there's a biker, that likely the biker is going to be on the other side of that line. In combination with the showers, I think it's great.
Helen,
Yes.
when you did your survey on Winter Street and Mechanic Street, had they painted a line at all, or they just took the sidewalk out?
Well, the sidewalk is in front of the Freeman's house and coming down that hill. It sits in about 2 or 3 feet. So there's grass. And then it was pretty much flat from the Freeman's up to the next 2 houses. So like I said, they just took everything up in whole blocks. The problem was not that it was cracked, but that it was uneven. And they left the last 15, 20 feet down at the end, which are all now obstructed by bushes. Mechanic Street there's been no change really in its condition since. And in terms of Anita's comment, or it was Margot's comment about lines delineating bike spaces, the problem on Main Street is you should have seen, I'm sure as you drive it, there is a line delineating a walking area on the, I don't know, it'd be the south side of the street. And yet
Outside, yeah.
people who are coming to the main media from other states have no idea that that's actually a sidewalk over there.
Yeah.
And now it's so broken and cracked and disgusting. It doesn't even merit a walking
Yeah,
space.
I think
And we've
this,
promised a new one
Yeah.
since, what's his name, before he retired?
Right.
Bill?
Hmm?
Bill.
No, the old public works
Rick.
guy.
Oh,
Public
Steve?
Works.
Steve.
Steve Beveridge, yes. He
Oh,
promised us a sidewalk on that. It was in the budget. And that's been a good, what, 10, 15
Yeah.
years ago?
Yeah.
So can I just make one last comment about what's going on? If the sidewalk, I think it's something certainly that as soon as we finish our sidewalk assessment for Rockport, that we write up sort of an executive summary and talk about that.
Mhm. I've got all the
Yeah,
photos.
I like it. I like it, Linda. And I also think that we should talk a little bit more about coming up with sort of a recommendation, but I'm aware that it's 7:30.
Yes, Jeopardy started.
And Jeopardy has started.
Okay.
And so Anita, if you have something to add, or it can wait, we're not carrying on with this conversation.
I have a lack of clarity. My understanding from my discussion about the sidewalk survey is that there is one segment of the Rockport survey that has not been assigned. So I'd like to know whether you need help with a section in Rockport, or whether there's somebody who's going to do that.
I
Is that
think
correct?
Margot and I are gonna go out and tackle, and maybe we'll drag Heidi along too. I see her down there. I see you, Heidi.
She's hiding.
Anita,
What
the
may
end
I go
result
out?
was that Linda was going to take care of those, the Rockville section, the 1790 section, Ingram's, and Warrenton, Glen Cove.
Yeah, we've got 4 sections that we'll go take a look at. We'll get them done.
And if you can't remember, it's on that shared drive, Linda. You can just look who's on the shared drive. The list is there.
Yeah.
That's it. So I'm gonna put, I just had an idea, and we'll talk about it next time about how to work this no sidewalk suggestion thing.
Well, you
like
mean
it.
shared road?
Yeah, the shared road idea.
Yeah, and just to be clear, this is not like where you would have a lane for a sidewalk. This is
That's right.
where
That's right.
it has
This
to
is
be a place where the road speed is really, really slow.
Yeah. We'll talk about more about that. We'll brainstorm about it. I'll put it on the next list. Anybody else have anything else? Al, you want to back scratch there, Andrew? Is that what that is? Isn't that a back scratcher?
I was saying good night.
Oh. Is that Zorro's paw? That's pitiful. That's awful. What are you feeding him?
Cookies and brownies.
Get
Thank
that
you.
to me, Andrew. Good night, everybody.
Night.
Good night. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Richard, get me it. You owe me, Richard. Yeah, he slipped away. Good night, Allison.
Good night.
Good night, Allison. Thanks for all your work on the river stuff.
Thanks for all your work
Thanks,
on the
thanks for
stuff.
chiming in
Yeah,
on Facebook.
Thank you.
Oh, I had a question for you, Allison, on the,
Hold on just a second. Let me
Anita, can you mute?
just, I've got
Yeah, turn that.
too many things going on.
Stream
here with
off.
the, I'm experimenting with the monitors in the town office. I mean, yeah.
The wide angle thing?
No, in the
We're
conference
still
room, like,
streaming.
I know,
still
I'm,
streaming.
I've got multiple, if you could see, we have like, I've got all kinds of,
All kinds of stuff
like,
going on.
stuff, so I've got-
Oh, you've got a split window thing.
yeah, so I'm experimenting.
Oh,
with
no,
how
that's
you
this.
guys
Oh,
do
that's
it.
all of us. That's all of
Right.
us. I got it.
So that might be how it would look during, select board meetings. The Zoom participants would be, would show up on that screen. And then we could still have stuff on the projector back here. It's all very, I'm just so happy. 'cause
Doable.
I've been wanting to sort of be able to experiment with this stuff for a long time, and we're making a lot of progress.
But you're
But
just, what you're doing is you're just projecting the Zoom meeting. You're not using the owl on this one.
no, we're not using the owl on this one. We use the owl.
When there's multiple people in the room. Yeah.
Yeah, and what was great actually is, it was that Pathways meeting that we got forced to quickly like set up that hybrid thing. It was so great because
It was a great test.
and I realized, and we had Matt Siegel listen to it, and we were all like, yeah, actually this works pretty well. And we used that system for the public input meeting for the parking stuff, and then we were able to use it for the select board meeting last night. And so it'll just keep getting better and better.